Severus Snape was a middle-aged half-blood wizard born January 9th, 1960. He was one of the most polarizing wizards of his age, a double agent for both the greatest wizards of the age, Dumbledore and Voldemort. After his time at Hogwarts, he would go on to join the Death Eaters, where he would commit vicious acts against Muggleborns and other half-bloods and mudbloods. He would not have a change of heart until he realized that the love of his life, another half-blood witch named Lily Potter, was being targeted by the Dark Lord himself. Wanting to stop the murder of she and her son Harry Potter, Snape went turncoat, working for Dumbledore's army as a double agent. After his failed attempt to save Lily's life, he made it his secret life's mission to protect her only son, Harry Potter. Severus would go on to teach at Hogwarts for several terms as a potions master, eventually becoming a defense against the dark arts teacher, and then finally, the headmaster. Though he was able to keep up the charade that he was still a loyal Death Eater, Voldemort still killed him at the end of the Second Wizarding War, assuming he was the master of the all-powerful Elder Wand. Nevertheless, Severus Snape was one of the most powerful and calculating wizards of his age. Bellatrix Lestrange was a pure-blood witch slightly over middle age, born sometime during 1951. She was one of the most dangerous and sadistic Death Eaters of all time, unfailingly loyal to Voldemort, perhaps the only witch or wizard to be truly loyal to him. After her graduation from Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, she promptly joined the ranks of the Death Eaters. She would participate in the First Wizarding War, including a skirmish where she would have the Longbottoms at her mercy. She tortured them with the Cruciatus Curse until they completely lost their minds. Eventually, she would be captured and sent to Azkaban at the war's end. However, she would get out during the mass breakout of 1996, where she would reclaim her place at Voldemort's side, leading the charge in the Second Wizarding War. However, her reign would be short-lived. 2 years later, during the Battle of Hogwarts, she would expire at the hands of Molly Weasley in a heated battle. Still, Bellatrix was possibly the most feared Death Eater, second only to Voldemort himself. Severus Snape is described as a somewhat short wizard with pale skin. There is not much description of any of his physical attributes, so a lot of my analysis would be based on his other traits. Though he might not have been as energetic as someone like Bellatrix Lestrange, or as ferocious as Fenrir Greyback, he seemed to be somewhat of a minimalist. In the duels we've seen him in through the Harry Potter movie series, his wand flourishes are not often flamboyant. Instead, they are direct and precise. Therefore, since he was not always the strongest nor the fastest in any group, he had to hone on his precision. In his brief fights with Harry Potter and Professor McGonagall, he expressed very deft flicks and flourishes in his wand sequences, giving him an edge in accuracy. Bellatrix Lestrange was a tall and slender woman. She was able to outlast and survive most of the battles of the Second Wizarding War. During the battle at the Department of Mysteries, she was able to keep up with several teens in a pursuit throughout the maze of the department. In the skirmish in the Malfoy Manor, she was able to deftly throw a knife before Harry and his friends could disapparate, able to kill the house elf Dobby. Most of all, she was able to withstand the toll of the Grand Battle of Hogwarts, at one point keeping up with 3 younger witches single-handedly. In all her fights, she showcased a grace of deft hands and adequate mobility. Though Snape was deft and precise in his movements, Bellatrix was an unyielding ball of madness. Her ferocity and unrelenting nature was able to power through most of her foes. Even though she was a dominating force, she would not completely outdo Snape's direct and concrete manner. However, Snape just didn't have enough of a fire to overstep Bellatrix's raging inferno. Thus, I give the edge to Bellatrix Lestrange in regards to her physical abilities. Severus Snape was a very calm, cynical, and calculating wizard. As a student at Hogwarts, he was bullied often, especially by James Potter and Sirius Black. He did not have very many social skills and spent most of his time in solitude. However, he was very diligent in his studies and became useful to the Death Eaters because of his analytical mind and fantastic talents with his magical abilities. As a professor, he had a commanding presence, being the only other professor besides McGonagall to keep a classroom quiet without effort. Severus was also very great at withholding his emotion, keeping his true intentions and desires within himself. As he would say to Harry Potter in regards to Voldemort,
"Fools who wear their hearts proudly on their sleeves, who cannot control their emotions, who wallow in sad memories and allow themselves to be provoked this easily. Weak people, in other words, they stand no chance against his powers. He will penetrate your mind with absurd ease."
This mindset would extend to his mastery of occlumency. This magic, which was very tied to one's personality, was a defense of the mind against external penetration. Masters of occlumency, like Severus Snape, could repel legitimens from penetrating his true thoughts. Furthermore, he could also place false thoughts in his mind and repel the effects of Veritaserum, the truth-telling potion. Though he was cold and indifferent, seemingly devoid of emotion, he did manage to hold a love for Lily Potter, a love so strong enough he was able to produce a full Patronus at the thought of her. Bellatrix Lestrange was a sadistic, uncaring, brutal, violent, and malevolent witch. She was clever, yet she had a very short temper, something she shared with her cousin Sirius Black. When her temper flared, she became a very dangerous individual to deal with. Like most of her contemporaries within the Death Eater ranks, she held an immense prejudice against all those who were not pure-blood witches or wizards, and she had even more distaste for muggles. She was also a forceful, if not natural, leader. During the Second Wizarding War, she took command during the battles of the Department of Mysteries and Astronomy Tower, as well as the skirmish of the Malfoy Manor. Another point of her cold-blooded nature was that she did not often take prisoners during the war, instead torturing them and then killing them. Granted, she was not completely careless or heartless, as she did show affection towards her pure-blood family. In particular, she did worry for her sister and nephew, Narcissus and Draco Malfoy, even teaching the young Malfoy a few of her dark abilities to defend against Dumbledore. Yes, Bellatrix Lestrange was a brutal and chaotic witch, but she still showed focus when it was time to get down to business. Severus too was clearly very focused and rarely showed much emotion at all. These traits would extend to their magical abilities. Bellatrix was able to produce such powerful magic because of her boisterous personality, and Snape was able to be so covert because of his secluded personality. In a fight, I would lean more towards Snape's abilities than to Bellatrix. Not only because I think his abilities were more suited for a wand duel, but because I think he was more powerful with them. By comparison, Bellatrix's big personality did not match to the cloak Snape could hide himself under. Snape was undisputedly the greatest occlumens in the wizarding community of his age. His ability was so pronounced, he can even repel the Dark Lord from penetrating his true thoughts. That, coupled with the fact that he could love enough to produce a Patronus, yet still able to muster up strength for dark magic, gave him more tools to work with. Therefore, I give the edge to Severus Snape in regards to his personality traits. Severus Snape was one of the best wand duelists of his time, just below Voldemort and Dumbledore's level of mastery. There is no definitive description of Snape's wand, but from pictures and his style of dueling, we can infer what he used. His wand was probably made of Hollywood with a core of unicorn hair. Unicorn hair was known for its very consistent magic, though it was difficult to turn to the dark arts. I feel this fits Severus Snape. mostly because his magic was indeed very consistent, and he would definitely be witty and strong enough to convert his wand to the use of dark arts. And he was, of course, an accomplished wizard in the dark arts. Before he graduated Hogwarts, he created several original spells, including, but not limited to, Sectisimpra, Langlock, and Levicorpus, the latter which was widely used even after his time as a student. He'd also be efficient with charms and transfiguration, as well as non-verbal magic. Not to mention, he was accomplished with wandless magic as well, including the ability to fly without a broomstick, an ability taught to him directly from Voldemort. As a duelist, he was often seen on the defense, but he was extremely capable on offense as well, creating quick counterattacks. His greatest feat would be going against Professor McGonagall, repelling all of her spells without great effort. His greatest dueling asset would be his mastery of acclimacy and legitimacy. In a duel, he could keep his mind closed to his opponent, who might use legitimens against him to figure out what spell he would cast next. And by contrast, he was able to use legitimens on them to figure out what spell they could cast on him. We see this in play when he fought Harry Potter, whose open mind and open mouth gave away his spell well before he cast it. However, his ability did not stop with a young wizard like Harry Potter, as he was able to successfully employ acclimacy against the great Lord Voldemort for several years, a feat not easily achieved. Bellatrix Lestrange was an accomplished and ferocious duelist. She carried a 12-inch walnut wand surrounding a dragon heartstring. Dragon heartstring were known for powerful yet unstable magic, though they learned spells rather quickly. Her wand had a bend to it like a bird's talon, and Ollivander, the wand maker, would state that it was unyielding. Bellatrix was foremost an offensive duelist, using her powerful curses and hexes to overwhelm her foes. She would state time and time again that she was trained directly under Voldemort, learning spells most other wizards would never attain. Her proclamations would not be all talk, as she indeed was very powerful, able to outduel Nymphadora Tonks, Kingsley Shacklebolt, and Sirius Black, some of the best duelists of the time. And before the Malfoy skirmish, she was able to make short work of 4 Snatchers who were swiftly deemed no match for her. However, she was not an all-out offensive juggernaut in a duel. She was very capable of defending herself as well, taking on Hermione Granger, Luna Lovegood, and Ginny Weasley at the same time. Most of all, she was able to defend against a spell cast by the great Dumbledore, enabling her escape from the Ministry of Magic. She was a master of non-verbal spells and dark arts as well. She had a fancy for the Cruciatus Curse, often preferring it over the Killing Curse, which was also in her capacity to achieve. She was also proficient in the way of acclimacy, to the point she was able to teach it to Draco Malfoy to use against Dumbledore throughout the school year, though with little success. Both Bellatrix Lestrange and Severus Snape were extraordinary duelists of their time. In the ranks of the Death Eaters, they were clearly on par. Though Bellatrix was very public with the fact that Voldemort taught her in the way of the dark arts directly, she was not the only one. Clearly, Voldemort had taken a liking to Severus enough to teach him a few tricks of the trade as well. Yet, they seemed to take different things from him. Bellatrix preferring the Cruciatus Curse, and Severus favoring the skill of flight. Bellatrix's control and power with the Torturing Curse would be great against Snape, but Snape's ability to fly would give him more mobility. Outside of Voldemort, they had their own skill set as well. Severus was extremely crafty, creating his very own spells when he was still an adolescent at Hogwarts. Bellatrix was an astounding duelist in her own right, taking on multiple high-class foes like Kingsley Shacklebolt and Tonks. Her biggest achievement being able to repel a spell from Dumbledore. When looking at them both, they were extremely even in their capabilities. Bellatrix was ferocious and powerful, and Snape was crafty and tenacious. Thus, I cannot give either of them the definitive edge, and I deem both Severus Snape and Bellatrix Lestrange as equals in regards to their dueling abilities. would a duel between Bellatrix Lestrange and Severus Snape be a fantastic and close matchup, but it would be very probable as well. Had Snape been found out before his untimely death, and if it had been Bellatrix to do it, it is very possible that they would have engaged each other. Severus Snape was a very decisive and direct individual, great for magical consistency. However, Lestrange was a ball of fire, great for magical prowess. Bellatrix was unrelenting and uncaring, a freight train through her opponents. Yet Snape was a stone wall, whose advantage would be his covert expertise. They were equal in their dueling abilities, both taught by Lord Voldemort in their time, becoming extremely competent in their own regard. Initially, Bellatrix would be the aggressor in the fight, opening with a barrage of hexes and curses. Severus would fall back comfortably on his defensive footing, repelling all of her attempts. However, eventually, Bellatrix's overwhelming hexes would overpower him and he would evade, taking flight around her flank. Lestrange would recover quickly, using her quick hands to repel him even in flight, hitting him with a curse and bringing him back down to the ground. In this opening, she would hit him with the Cruciatus Curse, tormenting him. Snape would take the pain, emptying his mind of pain, and eventually he would bring his wand up and conjure a serpent to attack her. Bellatrix would break the tormenting curse, pulling her attention towards the serpent, though she would make short work of it with an incendio charm. Snape would get up and gather himself, and they would face each other face to face. At this point, it would be a battle of who would draw first. Snape would open his mind to her, giving her a false read of his next spell. Sensing this, Bellatrix would draw her wand and conjure the killing curse. With a subtle move, Snape would dodge his head to one side, disarming Bellatrix of her wand before saying two little words.
Avada Kedavra.
Thus, I deem Severus Snape, the Half-Blood Prince, the ultimate victor. Of course, this is all my opinion. Please leave your thoughts and comments below. Peace, love, and mischief managed.